died yesterday, who may die tomorrow, but how together we will create principles, priorities that will put you and your safety in mind. We also spoke about so many other issues, but we could not bring the entire shadow cabinet here. So while Wavell, Janice, and Peter are here, our esteemed, or brilliant, did I say brilliant already? Our brilliant, I said it already. Our brilliant party leader, the legal luminary, Mark Golding, will take us through the rest. Ladies and gentlemen, we have something in store for you this evening. I want you to sit back, don't relax too much, because it's going to be hard talk this evening. To kick us off, we will have Mr. Alan Bernard. He is a deputy shadow minister with responsibility for social transformation and social protection. The MP candidate for Northwest St. James. He's going to bring you greetings.
Thank you very much, Nikisha. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the great constituency of Northwest St. James. I feel honored today to be welcoming you, and I'll also take the opportunity to introduce to you the team from Northwest St. James, as well as to introduce the candidates for the parish of St. James. I want to acknowledge the divisional leaders from the Paradise Division, Mr. Andrew Henry. From the Norwood Division, Mr. Floyd Hitchman. And Miss Tamara Buchanan from the Glendovan Division. There she is. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the team from Northwest St. James that intends to put this constituency back in the winning column for the People's National Party. I have spent close to 30 years working with stalwarts from the People's National Party and in the parish of St. James to develop community and bring about genuine transformation. I want to use this opportunity, Comrade Leader, to mention one such stalwart, Mrs. Marilyn McIntosh Nash, a past constituency and regional secretary who would have mentored, nurtured, and would have grown to become one of my closest friends and allies, not only in our quest to develop community, but in my pursuit to become a representative for the People's National Party. Maki, as she was affectionately called, is no longer here with us, but her work continues. The mantra that captures Marlene's work, the mantra, the PNP, and the reason for me taking on this task is simple. It is you do the things because it's the right thing to do. This is what has led me to the People's National Party and to representational politics. We intend in Northwest St. James to do the things for the people of Northwest St. James, to do the things for the people of St. James, to do the things for the people of Jamaica, simply because it's the right thing to do. I want to welcome you, Party Leader. This is our second function for the day. I want to welcome you to Montego Bay, welcome you to Northwest St. James. Peter Bunting, my sister and friend Janice Allen, Wavell, welcome to Montego Bay, welcome to Northwest St. James. This is about you, it's about you hearing from us, listening to us, putting your questions to us, and go and make that choice. The time to be happy is now. The place to be happy is here. And the way to be happy is to help the People's National Party make
type of cancer that you can think of. There's a ganja that can cure it. So Jamaica has a remarkable potential to use this industry to create wealth and uplift the grassroots. Fundamentally. When we talk about they see us playing the futsal and wondering what it is. It's not the same scrimmage that they play over there in Glendevon and Norwood. It's a globally accepted international game where players are earning millions of US dollars to play in Italy, Spain, all of Europe. So when you see us bringing a game up from the grassroots and playing it by the real rules, the real ball, the real goal, and the referee with the real understanding of the game, it is to provide options for income generation for our young boys who cannot make it to pay 11 aside, cannot make the reggae boys and play football for Jamaica in the World Cup, but they can make it to play futsal in the World Cup. And this is the transformational leadership that the PNP is bringing to Montego Bay. These things are outside of the scope of the Member of Parliament who is running. And it is outside of the scope of the Jamaica Labour Party because they cannot understand that no more than ever young people have recognized that different industries are being created every year. And different avenues are there for them to create wealth. All they need is the support. The suppressive politics that has plagued this city over the last 20, 30 years must be a thing of the past. Tonight, we have an esteemed panel. Comrade Wave Lines, real general. Comrade Peter Bunting, real general. Comrade Janice Allen, real general. And our leader, Comrade Mark Golding, who is going to usher in a new transformational, non-apologetic, non-nepotic, favor-granting government that is dedicated towards moving the grassroots of people forward and, more importantly, creating wealth for a nation of such remarkable people. This is the People's National Party. This is change. Time come.
That was Dr. Andre Horton, the next Member of Parliament for West Central St. James. I'm going to tell you about a man I met a couple of years ago. Was so impressed by him that today I follow him. His grandfather is from my constituency in Cambridge, right up there, so. He's quiet. He's so unassuming. He's not the loudest in the room. He's not going to wear clocks and tell you, say, him belly full already. Because even though he has come from much, he and his family, they've given much more to this country, Jamaica. I'm going to tell you about a quiet leader who leads with compassion. I'm going to tell you about a dedicated man whose brilliance transformed the legislative framework of Jamaica in the past. It has gone to sleep now. It will arise once more when this man, who is husband to Sandra, the beautiful princess, will take office. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the next Prime Minister of Jamaica, Mark Jefferson Golding.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Master of Ceremonies, and next Member of Parliament for South St. James, Comrade Nikisha Burchell. And greetings to our panel, my comrades and colleagues, our candidates here in the room. We have Dr. Andre Horton, we have from Hanover, Comrade Andrea Perkis, Comrade Heather Miller, Alan Bernard, Rochelle Reed-Nutt, and of course Janice, who you'll be hearing more from in a while. This town hall, as has been said, is the third in a series that we've been having, really to give an opportunity to interact with residents, community members, the people, in a way that we can go into a bit more depth in some of our ideas, and to hear, importantly, to hear from you on the issues of the day and how you feel about things, to make your suggestions and comments so that we can have the benefit of your wisdom and understanding and experience informing our policies and programs as we proceed to form the next government here in Jamaica. Now, at the center of the next PNP government must be a very strong ethical framework. Oh. Yeah. The values, the morals, the attitudes which make us a productive, caring, and peaceful nation are essential to nurture and promote, to take Jamaica forward, to reach the heights that we ought to be striving for and that we are capable of, but which seem to be eluding us as we find ourselves enmeshed in a quagmire of corruption, cronyism, bad governance, and other dispiriting things that we hear about almost every day. As you know right now, we're faced with a situation where the Prime Minister of the country is under pressure because his financial affairs cannot be certified by the Integrity Commission of the country, the anti-corruption agency of the country, as being above board and in order from 2021 going forward, because he has assets which his lawful income can't support. And that is what illicit enrichment, which is an offense, a serious offense under the Corruption Prevention Act, that is what illicit enrichment means. And he has been investigated for this. And at the end of a long and detailed investigation, the Integrity Commission said, well, we aren't able to come to a final conclusion on the matter because we weren't provided some of the information by Mr. Holness that we'd asked. And there's sufficient there to warrant further investigation to get to the facts. Things like several $1 million of cash deposits, raw cash being deposited to his account from anonymous sources, 28 bank accounts that he controls, either in his name or his company's names, over $470 million of flows moving across his bank accounts in thousands of transactions, and of course, the filing of nil returns by those same companies, suggesting that they're dormant or weren't active, had no income when all these flows have been passing through the accounts. And then the Positive Jamaica Foundation, an NGO, a non-profit organization that was set up to solicit and receive funding from here and abroad to be spent on worthy causes, those resources being used to buy financial investments in his personal company's name. All of these things really suggest something is very much amiss, and that the Financial Investigations Division must look into it much more carefully and deeply. And what have we heard now? Well, we've heard that somebody who has come on public radio, looked at the report of the Integrity Commission and said, oh, despite all the things I've mentioned, there's nothing there, there's nothing wrong with any of that. That is the person who they want to put and have put to be the head, the chief technical director of the Financial Investigations Division that is charged with completing the investigation of the Prime Minister. Someone who he's closely associated with, and somebody who, although an accountant, has no law enforcement experience, no particular qualifications in the area of fighting financial crimes, money laundering, terrorism financing, which are the core requirements to run the FID. The FID is an investigative law enforcement agency, and it's a very important one because it is the authority that international law enforcement, anti-corruption and anti-financial crime agencies interact with Jamaica. There's a group called the Egmont Group that is all of the countries that have achieved certain standards and want to be part of an international alliance to fight against these things. Jamaica's agency that interfaces with those countries is the FID. So this is a totally untenable situation, and I'm very happy that various non-government and non-political organizations have come forward and said this is untenable, this doesn't look right, it should not stand. And I'm very disappointed that there are some leaders in the private sector who seem to think there's nothing wrong with what has taken place. I suggest that they reconsider the matter and look at the facts, because it is absolutely clear and blatant that this appointment is totally inappropriate, untenable, and should not stand. So we have taken a resolute position against this. We had a very successful, peaceful demonstration on Monday morning at National Heroes Circle to register publicly our absolute disgust with what is happening, and we will continue the struggle. He should have reflected on that matter and taken certain decisions, but they're obviously determined to should have reflected on that matter and taken certain decisions, but they're obviously determined to tough it out and see what happens. But the people of Jamaica don't like it. They don't like the smell of it. They don't like the look of it. They don't like the feel of it. And I think it's what I'd call good-minded behavior to stand up against bad administration, to stand up against corruption, to stand up against this type of situation that is bringing our country into disrepute. So I'm saying let us stand behind good-minded behavior and stand up for what is right, do the right thing. Thank you. And I plan, when we next form government, which will be soon, because all walk one, them can run but them can't hide. They have to face the people. And you know, if they felt comfortable and confident, this would have happened a long time. We were planning for an election from February. And you know, because typically governments don't like to go to the wire with these things because it narrows their room for maneuver and so on. But they have been deferring it. But it's not going to change. The people of Jamaica have made up their mind. And they want change. And they see the programs and policies that we are speaking about. And they understand that it is very important that the People's National Party be brought back into government so we can deliver a government that the people can have confidence in, and a program and policies that will address some of the critical issues facing the nation and holding us back. So we are very pleased, for example, let us look at the issue of health care. And this is a real issue here in St. James, where your leading hospital, your Taipei Hospital, the Cornwall Regional Hospital, has been the subject of what I would say is the mother of all negligently and ineptly executed projects. in the history of Jamaica. A project that should have been finished years ago, a project that should have been completed within a couple $1 billion, has now gone into what, its 8th year or something like that. The cost of the project has gone to over $21 billion. That's an overrun of 10 times the original figure. And the government is trying to, cut ribbons for administrative offices when the hospital itself is in a dire situation. And, although their apologists will try and cover it up and say everything all is well, the people of St. James and Western Jamaica know that that is a terrible condition, a terrible situation, a life-threatening situation for the people here, which is a disgrace and should never have been allowed to be where it is. We are looking at a different approach to healthcare, and some of the things that we have in mind are, for example, focusing on the major causes of death in the country, which are non-communicable diseases, which are things that are lifestyle related. High levels of diabetes, high levels of kidney disease, high levels of hypertension, which is pressure, and of course cancers. And the problem with food insecurity, which the UN, the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization of the UN, has said 55%, that's more than half, of Jamaicans are facing moderate to severe food insecurity. That means that they're either not eating sufficient food for what they need to live properly, or they're eating the wrong kinds of foods, unhealthy foods, because they can't afford a nutritious diet. And that situation feeds into those very non-communicable diseases that we're talking about. And the health system needs to have a much more aggressive approach, much more proactive approach to screening people for these diseases, so you catch them early. There's so many people in Jamaica who are hypertensive and don't know. There are people who have cancer and don't know, and they don't know until it's very late in the day, and then it's much harder to treat it successfully and much more expensive for the public health system to carry and for the people themselves to deal with what is required to try and fight those diseases then. So we want to introduce a comprehensive screening program that gets everybody tested early so that we can nip these things in the bud when they're not life-threatening and when the costs of doing so are more manageable. We also are aware that many of the operating theaters across the country are in a bad state. Many of them are closed, and closed because pieces of equipment, basic things like air conditioning units or mold or pieces of equipment are not working. And we are planning to refurbish all of the operating theaters in the public health system so that they're all working and functioning as they should. And then we have this idea of establishing urgent care centers. And urgent care centers in every parish would be where you could be taken if there's an emergency, to have your life saved, to stabilize the situation, and then after that you're stable, you can then be taken to a proper hospital to deal with the remedial side of the condition. Yeah. And of course, we see the need for preventive maintenance being a central part of how you manage the healthcare system, as it is for how you manage the road network. But it's at two different areas, but both have that in common, which is that if you don't maintain the assets that you have, the assets don't work for you. And you have this situation in the health system now where so many pieces of equipment are not working either at all or not properly working. And so people have to, we're going to the private sector now, private providers for their diagnostic tests, which is costing individuals or the state huge amounts of money. And we believe that this can be dealt with by having a proper system of preventive maintenance for the equipment that we invest in, so that the equipment can work properly for its scheduled life and then can be replaced with new equipment when its scheduled life comes to an end. So we're very big on preventive maintenance in all areas. And of course, we want to support our healthcare workers because we need to keep them in the system, and many of them are leaving. So we're looking at things like housing opportunities, looking at the pay packages for them and training opportunities as well to make it easier for them to stay in the health system, to make it beneficial for them to stay in the health system rather than migrate, for example, as many are now doing. Education, I move to, another vital area. Now, one of the reasons why yeah, you soon get a chance, brother. Let me talk and then you can get a chance after. We love the passion still. But our economy has not been able to grow out of the stagnant GDP per capita of around 67,000 US per individual Jamaican. We have been stuck in that range despite all the good work that has been done to get our public finances into a sustainable state, to get the debt of the country down to manageable levels and all of that, which the last 10 plus years, more than 10 years, 15 years, the country has been focused on dealing with. Yet the economy is not generating wealth for the people and is stagnant. And the levels of growth are very, very small. And we know that in order to address that, you have to fix the education and training system of the country, because it is the productivity of the people that will make the whole economy more productive and therefore attract investment and generate good paying jobs that can make our people generate wealth for themselves and their families. Right now, the education system is failing in so many respects. Over 30% of primary school children who leave and go into secondary school are illiterate, cannot read and write, cannot do basic arithmetic, over 30%. And we have to look at the causes of that and deal with them in a very serious way. Things like nutrition in the schools, in primary schools, the way in which we train our teachers, for example, the role of the Jamaican language in teaching children to master English and master arithmetic in homes where people speak our language. Many Jamaican homes are not bilingual homes. They're homes where English is not the first language. Our language is the first language, but the system assumes otherwise. And we're seeing some of the results of that false assumption playing out. So we really have to re-engineer how we deal with early childhood and primary education and tackle the real causes that are holding this large percentage of our children back, including things like special needs and assessing those who have learning disabilities and catching that early. Right now, there's insufficient attention and resources placed on that area, and it is a really important area as well. We also are looking at the training system of the country, and this is an area where we feel the private sector and the state need to work very closely together to drive the productivity of the workforce, ensuring that training opportunities are available, which are relevant, and which are going to help people to get jobs and good jobs. So we plan to support private sector investment in training with a matching dollar-for-dollar grant out of heart, so that if a firm is providing training opportunities by investing in training its workforce to upskill them so that new technologies can be adopted, so the firms can be more competitive globally, increase their sales, and pay their workers better, we will provide support for the investment in training, because we see that as vital to moving the country up. And we have a plan, for example, to deal with the absenteeism that we see, which is a major cause of some of the underperformance of the children in school, because there is a huge learning loss where you're not attending school 5 days a week. If you miss school 1 day a week for the duration of primary school, you're missing 20% of your education, which is, studies show, that is just too much to keep up. So what are the causes of this absenteeism? Many parents struggle to find lunch money to send their children to school, and the transportation costs are high, especially in rural communities where there's no state-run bus service. So we have a program called EASE, where we are going to be providing all needy children with at least one hot, nutritious meal per day at school, at primary and secondary school. And we have another program called RIDE, where we'll be providing a subsidy to starting with 20,000 families. Right now on the path, it's about 7,500. We're expanding that to 20,000 families who the schools identify need it most, to help them to cover the cost of transportation to and from school for their children. And as the economy improves, we're going to increase that number dramatically until we've introduced a proper rural transportation system for the country. These are things that will reduce absenteeism and make life easier for the families of Jamaica to support education and ensure their children get the full education that they need and deserve. And then, of course, we have our First in Family program. And that is a program that has been championed by our spokesperson for education, Senator Damon Crawford. And essentially what it works like this. If you have a young person or any person from a family who has qualified to enter university or a tertiary institution, and that person is the first in their family, in their household, to have attended a tertiary institution, the government will pay the full tuition cost of that student. Yeah. And we've costed it out, and we see how we're going to deal with it. And that child, that student, when they get their degree and step into the world of work as a fully trained person, can help their family transform as well. Their siblings, take them out of this intergenerational poverty, which is a feature of life in Jamaica, where people from one generation to the next, the poverty passes down. And of course, housing is another critical area. Land and housing, I should say, because although we have seen a lot of real estate developments being built while this government has been in office, those developments are really for people who have resources already and can afford to buy houses that are 25, 30, 40, 50 million dollars. But the ordinary Jamaican, everyday people, including professionals, young professionals in particular, but everybody who don't quite have it at that level, virtually no homes are being built for them. And there's a huge unmet demand for affordable housing. And so we have decided we have to deal with that. We have to bring the National Housing Trust back into its central original purpose that Michael Manley built it for, which is to ensure that our people have housing. And we're going to stop taking, this government for the last 10 years has been taking $11.4 billion a year out of the Housing Trust to fund the budget. And that is why the Housing Trust has been weakened and has been unable to fulfill its real mandate. And in fact, right now, other than the loans to the lowest paid contributors, all other NHT loans are not even funded, the money doesn't come from the NHT. They have to outsource it to the private lending market, the banks, and then pay the banks a subsidy to get them to lend the money at the interest rates that the NHT advertise. So that is a huge additional financial cost to the NHT, weakening it. So we need to repurpose and bring back the NHT to its original mandate and keep those resources in the NHT so it can do what it should be doing. And then we are going to compensate the people of Jamaica who have suffered from this depletion of resources from the NHT by making public lands available for housing, not agricultural lands, non-agricultural lands that are owned by the government. We are going to make them available for development for affordable housing, and we're not going to include the value of the land in the price of the house to keep it down for the people. And for the first-time buyers, if you're an NHT contributor for at least 2 years, many of our people struggle to find the money for a deposit to pay down on a house. We are going to allocate an annual amount of $1 billion from within the NHT itself to provide grant support of $500,000 for first-time buyers to help them get on the ownership ladder as early as possible. That's a grant. And then we have the rent-to-own scheme. And the rent-to-own is another innovation. If you want to qualify for a mortgage, you have to prove your income so you can show that you have the ability to pay the loan. For people who are self-employed, doing a little selling or whatever their hustling may be, or they might be working for somebody, but it's not a big business that generates pay slips that can be presented, they can't qualify right now. And what we intend to do is bring those people into the ownership system by saying they can go into occupation of the NHT house with a view to buying, but initially as a tenant, and pay the rent, which would be equivalent to what the mortgage payments would be. And if they are able to make their monthly payments as a tenant, after 6 months or so, we will say, you have proved your income. Time to transition now from being a tenant to being an owner, and we will let you have the mortgage and step up in life. And of course, we have our Porsche program, which is named after Sister P. And that is about things like completing all of the Operation Pride schemes that are out there that were not finished and this government has ignored. Completing the infrastructure, ensuring the titles are issued, and looking at other informal settlements and bringing solutions to upgrade them so people can become formal owners of a decent community instead of living on the margins of society. And dealing with things like the zinc fences in communities and the poor sidewalks that persons with disabilities struggle with and all that kind of thing. Porsche is going to be a social upliftment program for the people of Jamaica to deal with some of the endemic poverty that pervades. And in St. James, that is a real issue because we know the issues around land tenure here in St. James. So the last point I want to make before I close is the whole question of beach access. And you know, we are in a country which is blessed. We're in an island. We are in one of the most beautiful islands. And we're blessed with lovely beaches around our coast. But over time, because of the way that we have developed, and I'm not going to throw any stones or cast any aspersions, but the reality is that so many of our beaches are not accessible to our people. There are less and less beaches where our people can go and cool out, chill out, hold a meds, build a vibes, and just relax and recreate. And we feel that that is not a situation, we can't support that system any longer. So we are going to be looking at ways of negotiating with those who control those beaches. If they are owned by the government, we will continue to maintain or improve them and make them accessible to the people at a very affordable basis. But if they are in private hands, we're going to have discussions with the industry to see how we can reach a win-win situation where our people can have access to the beaches of this land. And if necessary, we'll use the law to ensure that this is done. And you know, there's around the rest of the Caribbean, tourists come and are on beaches where the local people are as well, and they don't have this system which excludes their people from the beaches. And Jamaica cannot move forward on the basis that we exclude our own people from the nicest spots in the country. We don't support them thing there. So we have work to do. And I noticed actually that the Minister for the Environment in his sectoral debate presentation, us having been agitating around this issue for a while, says, well, for all new projects, and he even showed a picture of a new project where there's a pathway built for access from the road to the beach for the public. And I'm like, good, well, that's a start. But what about all the existing ones that exist already? There are provisions in the law for addressing that. And to the extent that they're inadequate, I will fix that and make sure so we go through. So people, we have work to do. Jamaica has a lot of potential. We know that. We are a great people. We are a remarkable people. But we are also a people that are not moving forward in the way that we should to achieve our greatness. And we need to really tackle some of the issues, the legacy issues that are holding us back as a people. And that's what the next PNP government is going to be elected to do. And that is what we're determined to deliver for the people with a clean heart, pure heart, and clean hands. No hanky-panky business. And if anybody violate, then we're going to feel the result of that. Because we want to make sure that the people of Jamaica can trust us when we're in government, because they're sick and tired of what has been going on for far too long. Comrades, God bless. The word is love.
Ladies and gentlemen, isn't it refreshing to hear somebody so brilliant, clear, coherent ideas and not someone shouting at us? Ladies and gentlemen, the next Prime Minister, Mark Golding. It is my duty to recognize some very special guests with us this evening. Allow me to recognize Arthur Nelson and Mrs. Nelson, who are here with us this evening. The man who is organizing the troops for victory, my boss, the next Minister of Agriculture, General Secretary, Dr. Dayton Campbell. We have with us, ladies and gentlemen, some of the representatives who will be in Parliament next. You know the St. James ones already, but we have Andrea Perkis, Heather Miller, and Andrea Dehaney, Deputy Mayor of Hanover. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not really biased, but my neighbor from over the corner, former Maroon Chief Murdy Rowe, is here with us this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to invite for you quickly someone who is going to take the first bat off the ball, the first crack off the ball. You see what I did there? Yeah? He's